One of the things that I've really noticed over the last 3 months is creativity doesn't come from force, it comes from like overflow. Chasing fame is about being on this like hamster wheel. It's about doing all the things that we should do to create attention for ourselves. So it's about, okay, I need to talk on all the stages, get on all the podcasts. I need to create content incessantly. I need to do all the things so that I get the attention that I am seeking. But the core thing, the anchor for all of this is how do we create these legacy level businesses that contribute to a life that becomes our legacy? All right, we're going to start this episode today with something I have never publicly admitted before. Just after the last episode I dropped, the end of season 2, I was about to go on holiday to Mexico with family for about a couple of weeks. And I went to go turn on my out of office because I knew that I wanted to have like a real break, like a total unplug, a digital detox, my partner and I were calling it. And when I went to go turn on my out of office, I saw something that literally rocked me. I hadn't turned on my out of office for 2 years. The last time I turned it on was when I was going to Costa Rica for my 40th birthday. And that really shook me because what I realized was that even in all of the joy that my work brings me, I hadn't in 2 years given myself permission to fully unplug. So, welcome to season 3 of the Soulful CEO podcast. And I'm so glad you're here because today we're going to have a very special episode where we're going to kick off season 3 with a little bit of a background on where I've been these past 3 months, because it's been 3 months since we've dropped an episode here, what's been happening behind the scenes, and where we're going to go together this season. Because these past 3 months, there's a lot that's been happening in the silence, in the void, and giving myself that permission to really drop in and see, where I want to take this show, the purpose of the podcast in the business. And I'm so happy I've taken this space because what I've got for you is you're going to want to be here for this. So let me take you on a little bit of a backdrop into where I've been for the last 3 months. So as I mentioned, I went to Mexico with family right around Christmas time, and it was something that my partner and I committed to going in. We're like, no phones, no social media. I even borrowed like an old digital camera from my little nephew because I'm like, I don't even want to have my phone on me. I want to go like total old school for that. And for those of you that haven't done that in a long time, let me tell you, it is so nice. I thought that I would be like kind of like craving to be, on social or on my phone or wanting to share. And I just wasn't. Having that like pure space of presence and not distractions was actually so, so nice. And it created this space for new thoughts, my own thoughts, to really drop in. And I think that's one of the things that I noticed most when I came back online was how much our attention is constantly being grabbed for. Whether it be like from really, well-meaning friends or acquaintances or people who are like, even guests who were like, I want to come on your show. And we had been talking about it ahead of time. And it was like, I'm not ready for that yet. And so one of the things that created that space in between and noticing like what's mine, what's not, was actually creating like a disconnect from the constant barrage of, I want your attention, I need your time, I want this. And it's not from a bad place, as I said, but it's like, this is the world that we live in. So when I got back from Mexico, life started to move like really fast. Ryan and I bought our first house over on the Sunshine Coast in BC. And this place is just freaking magical, you guys. The first week I was outside, I was upstairs making tea, and I look outside and I see a pod of orcas swimming by. Every day we're out at the beach, we're in the mountains, and it just has this really, it's not like that far from the city. It's a 40-minute ferry ride. It's not super far, but it feels like it's worlds away. And the pace here is just so much more relaxed. So, one of the things that I made a commitment to myself around was that I had just had this digital detox, created this space. I was like, I want to create a new energetic blueprint for this life here. So I'm not going to bring in busy. I'm going to bring in how I want to move, how I want to build, and make sure that it's not getting filled with the shoulds. And instead, I'm creating space for like my true, like intuitive knowing around what needs to happen when. And the thing is like we're all making trade-offs all the time. So I know that if I'm not posting every day, I might not get as much traction in that space as I would if I was posting every day. However, what I've been really leaning into is just trusting in the unfolding, trusting in the depth versus the width and the like volume, and just seeing what unfolds from there. Because what I noticed is when I moved here, I had this like real primal urge to nest. And I don't know if any of you have felt this, whether it's maybe moving to a new home or just maybe it's the energetics of this year, is that I just like on the weekends, I actually wanted to like do things around the house. I wanted to like learn my new neighborhood. I wanted to get to know people and connect with people in person. And so that was really, what I wanted to make space for. And to be honest, part of me has really loved it. And the other part of me is learning how to trust that space because even in the stillness, I needed to be able to trust that I was still going to expand, that I was still going to be able to create the business and the vision and be able to do the work that I wanted to do. And one of the things that happened last week, it's like divine timing as always, was that I sold and locked in my biggest private client package to date. So in this client package is like I had been packaging things at this rate for like corporate clients when I had my leadership development consultancy. But this was the first time I was able to really package that kind of work for a private client. And it was all the evidence that I needed that I can create the business and the life that I want, and they don't have to compete with each other. And I don't have to work so hard to create the things that I want. So in business, that's what's been going on. And then in life, it's created all this space for like really thinking about like, what is the life that I want to live? What is the lifestyle I want to live? And for those of you that know me, this might seem like a random side conversation, but it's important because um, for those of you that know me, is I've had the same car since 2014. It was a little white Jetta. And for the last couple of years, it actually had a dent in the side because I kept running into the concrete poles in my parkade. And the first time I fixed it, and then the second time I'm like, this car's like gotta get an upgrade soon anyways. I'm just gonna leave it. But when I lived in the city, I actually didn't see any need to upgrade this car because if I was going out, I would usually take an Uber or taxi because then I don't have to figure out parking. And otherwise, it was to like transport me to the gym, to the grocery store, and to walk my dog. Then when we moved to the Sunshine Coast here, I've been really thinking about like my weekends and what I want to do outside of work and all of that stuff. And I'm like, I want to do more adventures. I want to go to the country and go snowshoeing and cross country skiing. And in the summer, we want to go camping. So last week, I bought a brand new Jeep Wrangler. And I was like, it was so interesting because it had taken me, a couple of years to really like grapple with what kind of car I want and if I want to upgrade and all these things. And then in one weekend, I just went and dropped like so much cash on this car. And I was like, wow, cars have gotten a lot more expensive. I didn't know that. But, anyways, it felt good because it wasn't just a car, it was a vehicle, like literally a vehicle to fulfill on the vision that I was creating in my life. And it was the easiest sale for the car salesman because it was like, yes, that's like, this is what I want it for. This is going to do the job. This is the best thing on the market. It's going to hold its value, all the things. And it was the easiest decision. And so the reason I share that is like there are these things that we, have going on in our lives that are outside of our business. And when they are things that fulfill on a vision for us, whether it be in our business, in our personal lives, with our families, the investment always makes sense. So that's been happening over there. This weekend, I'm actually hosting family for Easter, which feels really special. And what I'm really working on right now is opening to even more of this abundance. There's so much abundance right now. And what I've been learning is that there's this like trust in how good it can get. We don't have to always be on guard for when it gets good. Like, when is the other shoe going to drop? And this is what I want season 3 to be all about. And because this is what the last 3 months has really taught me. It's taught me to hold the duality of the bigness of our visions, being these creating these legacy level businesses, and for that not to come at the cost of creating a life that's a legacy as well. And so, a couple of things that I've been sitting with that I'm going to share with you just so you can see how and if they land with you. One of the things that I've really noticed over the last 3 months is creativity doesn't come from force, it comes from like overflow. So there's a version of building a business and content creation and posting and all of those things that is not just about doing the things because the algorithm tells us to do this. And in our current world where things are changing so quickly and AI is taking over, this idea around like, what can we automate? And then what actually is this like creative life flow that can never be automated? And how can we create using both? And so, one of the things that, I've been really sitting with is actually going deep versus really wide. We're in this era that's obsessed with like volume, more and more and more, more content, more clients, more scalability. And although I'm like a big fan of scaling your IP, I'm also a big fan of going deep with it. I'm not interested in creating, 100 different content pieces that don't really feel like mine. I'd prefer to do a 30-minute podcast here with you, all of you, and you get to like connect with my world and my life and our client and my clients. Like, I want to do the same thing with them. I want to go deep with a few people, and then have my work be able to go wide, but my time be spent in the going deep. And so that's one of the things that, I've been really sitting with is how do I want to spend my time? And, there's a world where we get to go wide with our IP by creating these scalable assets that then allows us to go deep in our own work in terms of like where we're spending our time. And what I've come to realize is like, I want to be working with a couple private clients, like this private client I talked to you about earlier. And I want to be working with a handful of women inside of my Legacy Builders Mastermind. Everything else is an entry point to enter people into my world, but my time is going to be spent in those two particular places. The other thing I've been really sitting with is the difference between being busy, and like being like, I guess that busy is the wrong word, but like chasing fame versus chasing being known. And these two things can like kind of sound the same, but I want you to really sit with like the nuance just for a second that I've been sitting with so you can feel into if there's a difference for you. To me, chasing fame is about being on this like hamster wheel. It's about doing all the things that we should do to create attention for ourselves. So it's about, okay, I need to talk on all the stages, get on all the podcasts. I need to create content incessantly. I need to do all the things so that I get the attention that I am seeking so that I can, share my body of work. And I'm not saying like fame, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a different avenue to this that I've been sitting with. And that's being known. That's letting our work speak for ourselves. Does that mean that we don't have to do things like post and speak on stages and all of that kind of stuff? Absolutely not. Because if you are amazing at what you do and you're the best kept secret, that's such a shame. So being known for your body of work still requires you putting yourself out there, still doing things so people can learn about you, but it's a different come from. The come from is less external. It's not about seeking that external validation. And it's more of an internal push about pushing our work out there into the world, right? Being so obsessed with what we do that we can't not talk about it. We can't not share it. We can't not want to get it into other people's hands. And to me, that's like a big difference and one that I've been really sitting with that feels so different in terms of the energetics behind it. So, this is what we're really going to be doing in season 3. We're going to be talking about how do we create that category of one business. What does it actually take to become a category of one in your industry? And not from that external famous lens, but instead this internal push of becoming known for your body of work. And I don't want to just talk about this theoretically. Like, or even just like systematically. I want to really look at this in a fulsome context where we have conversations from experts, from like actual frameworks that work. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be mixing up season 3 this season, well, in season 3, so that we have a mix more of these solo cast episodes. I do bring in some guest expert conversations, but they're not all of the conversations on the podcast. And what I'm going to be bringing in this season, which I think is going to be really fun, this isn't a total experiment, is live coaching demos, where I'm coaching someone live through some of the frameworks and the methodologies that I use with my clients to help them create that ownable and scalable body of work that they become known for. But the core thing, the anchor for all of this, is how do we create these legacy level businesses that contribute to a life that becomes our legacy? This intersection between the work and also how that impacts how we show up in our life, in our world, because this is the intersection that is, it's everything. And I've talked about this before, but I think in this world, and this is why I really want to own this conversation about bringing these two things together, is I hear a lot of the like, slow down, don't stress out your nervous system. It's the kind of this whole like soft life approach, right? And although that might work for some people, what I know for myself and for people who have this vision of building this like legacy level business, that's not interesting. That's not actually the goal. But the goal is also not to hustle so hard, like the Alex Hermosi, love that guy, but like, I don't want to live his life. I wouldn't want his level of success at the cost of my own happiness and fulfillment. So my work is all about finding this intersection where we can have both, where we get to hold this big, juicy, audacious vision for the legacy level business we have in the world, knowing that it's going to take moments and seasons of hustle. I'm not going to like sugarcoat it. It's going to be, we're going to have to put in the work. And then there's balancing it with seasons of soft, of flow. And how can we take that so we integrate that so it's more of this constant dance versus these things that feel really separate? Instead, we blend this joy and this ambition to create a legacy that for ourselves and for our work in the world. So I have some incredible guests coming on the show this season. I've already batched some episodes, so they're going to be coming out early in the season. If you have any guests that you want on the show, if you're like, this person would be an incredible conversation for you to have, send that my way, reply in an email, find me on Instagram, because I want to be interviewing the best thought leaders in their space to support you in building that legacy level business and what that looks like and what that means. So I already have people coming in around ads, around behavior-based sales psychology, about building wealth, about their own like navigating really tough stuff in life as you're still holding the vision and the bigness of your vision. And these are the things that I'm going to be really thinking about, like, what do you all need to know in order to hold this legacy level vision for yourself in order to execute on this? And then the solo casts, these are going to be times for us to go more personal, where I'm going to be sharing more of the behind the scenes and what I'm working on, the frameworks, the concepts, and the things that I are my body of work to share with you. And then, as I said, I'm going to bring on some coaching demos so you can actually see this and be coached by me, essentially, by watching how I'm supporting these other people. So before we get into any more of that, what I want to share with you is to celebrate the kickoff of season 3. I am starting something special, and this is a series that I've been thinking about for a while now. And the series is called the Category of One series, and it's going to happen inside of Known, which is my private Telegram community, for 10 days straight. And this is going to start on April 8th. And we're starting with, we're doing like an episode a day. And the episodes are going to range from things like owning the bigness of your vision and the shadow side of building that legacy level business. Because we can talk about, like, when I talk to people, there's very few people who aren't like, yeah, I want to be like the Brene Brown version of like my space. People want the legacy level business, most people. I actually find that word quite polarizing. There's people who like do not want that at all. They don't see themselves in that. And then my people are like, yeah, I want that. But then there's the whole shadow side conversation around that. Like, what does it actually take to build that legacy level business? And I want to get into like a real conversation around how legacy actually isn't for everyone when it comes to creating a legacy level business, because there's certain commitments, there's certain sacrifices that you have to make in order to create that legacy level business. So I want to talk about the shadow side of that and how to go all in on your legacy level business without losing yourself along the way. And then we're going to talk about some of the strategic stuff that comes along with creating that category of one business. So, talk about what it actually means to create a big idea around your brand that ideal clients can see themselves in. Because here's the real truth of what's happening in the coaching and consulting industry right now. And if you're, in the online space, you'll see this conversation everywhere around people noticing what's been working in their businesses for the last 5 years, 10 years, however long, isn't working the same way anymore. And that's because the information era is dead. And so if you've relied on sharing information, just simply packaging things that people can now chat GPT into courses, it doesn't matter how big your audience is. Those things are not going to be viable in terms of a business model moving forwards. People are really craving that support, that depth, the things and the nuance, the like humanity side of things, the transformation that things like ChatGPT can't give them. Because, we all have taken courses. Like when it comes to strategy, there's very few people I come across. Sometimes there's like nuances in there, but like they know what to do. Right. I had this like conversation with a woman I was doing an intensive with a couple weeks ago. And I was like, you've probably had this conversation before, right? We're talking about her social media strategy. And she was like, yeah, in many different ways. And I was like, so what's like gotten in the way of you actually like implementing the things that you know you should be doing? And these are all now the real things that people need help with. And so we're going to talk about this like big idea and the things that people really need help with and how you can start to pivot your business, your service-based business, whether you're a coach, a consultant, or an industry expert, to actually be more in demand today than you've ever been before. There are people today, I can speak for myself, that this is like the best era for me, the best chapter for me in my business. And I have clients who are experiencing the same things because they are understanding what clients are actually looking for, what people are actually looking for. So we're going to talk about that and then how to create offers, bodies of work around this without having to totally sell time for money, right? So how to create offers where, yes, there is some of that support, that implementation, but you're not spending all of your time in the same conversations over and over again. And this is what I call legacy level offer design. So we're going to get into that as well. There's so many other conversations we're going to have inside of that series, but I'm going to leave that there because I think that gives you a good enough idea of what we're going to get into. And as I mentioned, it's going to be over the course of 10 days. We start April 8th. So if you are a coach, consultant, or industry expert, you need to come join us inside of that kickoff. It's going to be a great way to kick off season 3. The link to join will be in the show notes. And I'm just like so genuinely glad to be back here with all of you. You can kind of see a different setup here in the background. One of the things that was taking me out of the game of like getting this season up and rolling was we have this like studio in our house that is going to be the media studio. So my partner also he's a musician. So we're going to create this to be like a recording studio for him, podcast studio, a content studio. And so we've got some of the pieces, the lighting, the microphone, all of that. But we're still working on the aesthetic. And I kind of wanted the aesthetic to be in place for season 3 to kick off. And then I'm like, I'm doing what I tell my clients not to do. It's like waiting for perfection instead of just like going because I'm ready to start sharing. And then you're going to see this place come alive over the next year, which is going to be so fun. So if you've been watching this show since season 1, if you've been part of this community since season 1, thank you so much for being here and for being back for season 3. And if this is your first episode, the first time that we've, connected, I'm so glad that you found me. The algorithm did its job. And either way, this is going to be a season worth showing up for. So I'm going to see you in the next episode. And until then, have a beautiful day, beautiful week. And remember, we can have both.